One final regular season game stands between Penn State and the postseason. The Nittany Lions host Michigan State this afternoon. The Land-Grant Trophy is up for grabs. It's not the oldest rivalry, but it's been pretty even over the years. We'll discuss it, plus a talk about that gorgeous hunk of pine they'll hand out today. Plus, Penn State is a win shy of double digits as it tries building its postseason resume. We'll talk extensively about the bowl landscape in our one-on-one. And seniors say goodbye. Sean Clifford, PJ Mustipher, and others weigh in on their final day inside Beaver Stadium. For one final time this season, Beaver Stadium will pack in 100,000 fans as the Nittany Lions wrap up the regular season. Let's get you set for kickoff. It's Nittany Nation Game Day. It's the final rodeo. Welcome inside the Nittany Nation studio. I'm Andrew Clay. She is Anderly Penwell. Today, the Nittany Lions seek a 10th win to wrap up the regular season. Penn State hosts Michigan State coming up later this afternoon.
The Land-Grant Trophy is on the line, and more importantly, though, Penn State's New Year's Six bowls also hang in the balance. Penn State remains 11th this week in the CFP rankings and appear to need some help to make a New Year's Six bowl. Only Sports Illustrated has Penn State going to one, and that's the Orange Bowl. The Citrus Bowl remains a top landing spot by many analysts, and most put them against Ole Miss. It's important to note that while the experts continue to pick two Big Ten teams getting in, it's still favored by ESPN computers.
Penn State's having trouble getting respect despite beating its opponents pretty handedly. The Nittany Lions have won 6 of its games by 4 or more scores. Only Ohio State among the top 10 teams has done it more times. Penn State is 6th nationally in point differential. The big minus here, though, their best wins come against 7-4 Purdue and 7-4 Minnesota. We will, of course, talk more about the bowl projections in our one-on-one later in this show when Andrew Destin from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette joins me. Now, the big storyline really around Happy Valley, it's Parker Washington.
Yeah, the wide receiver now is out for the season, and he's Penn State's leading receiver, so this is a massive loss for Penn State.
Washington leads the Nittany Lions with 611 receiving yards. That's about 100 more than Mitchell Tinsley. The rest of Penn State's wideouts combined for about 600 total yards. Last weekend, Tinsley moved into the slot, and Harrison Wallace took over on the outside. His 3-reception game was his first multi-catch game since playing Michigan.
Don't make things bigger than what they are. I mean, I feel like, yes, Parker was, a great player. But, at the end of the day, each man has to come in and step in and do their job.
Penn State defensive coordinator Manny Diaz is a Broyles Award semifinalist, an award given to the top assistant in college football. No defensive coordinator has won the award since Clemson's DC Brent Venables did it in 2016. Under Diaz, Penn State has maintained its spot as one of the top defenses in the Big Ten, despite losing numerous starters from last season's heralded unit. Franklin shared this week that when Diaz was hired, he actually bought Brent Pry's home, so it's symbolic as he's continued to carry the tradition on the field.
I think he's done a really good job of not just teaching the X's and the O's, but also building a culture on the defensive side of the ball, which is also something I thought Brent did a good job of, being the head coach of the defense, which is really what I want. I want the position coaches to do that as well by position.
In the Big Ten, fans will intensely be watching what happens in Columbus as Ohio State and Michigan meet at noon.
Just a casual rivalry there.
I still do believe the CFP committee could put in 2 Big Ten teams, but thinking outside the conference, here are some other notable matchups in college football. Also at noon, Clemson plays South Carolina. Beamer Ball hoping its role will continue. At 3:30, it's the Iron Bowl. At 4, TCU looks to stay unbeaten playing Iowa State. And tonight, Notre Dame faces USC. The Trojans still with a chance to make the CFP if it can win out. Remember, you can always keep up to date with all things Nittany Nation using the Nittany Nation app. Use the QR code right there on your screen to download and get all the latest news, scores, and stats right on your phone. When we come back, we'll talk about, quote, the most beautiful piece of wood. It's the Land Grant Trophy, and it's up for grabs. We'll dive into that rivalry.
Plus, it's Senior Day, how the players say they'll remember their time in Happy Valley. Those stories next on Nittany Nation Game Day.
You're watching Nittany Nation Game Day.
A week ago in the birthplace of college football, Penn State dropped a 50-burger on Rutgers. The Nittany Lions used 3 offensive touchdowns to highlight the victory, a kick 6 plus a pair of defensive scores. Offensively, Katron Allen ran for 117 yards in the win as Penn State moved to 9-2 on the season. Nittany Lions chasing a double-digit win season for the 4th time under Coach James Franklin. And the first one since going 11-2 back in 2019. Penn State will get 2 shots to do it. First one, of course, today against Michigan State.
From a bowl perspective, there's a lot on the line in this one as Penn State tries keeping its name in those New Year's Six conversations. But it's also one of 2 official rivalries for the Nittany Lions. Michigan State holds a close 18-17-1 edge in the series, and they won last year's snowy affair 30-27 in East Lansing.
Was
and
it cold?
I can attest to it. It was not cold. Unbelievably snowy. Coach Franklin's glasses there really summed that whole thing up. Though Penn State has a 16-10 advantage since moving to the Big Ten officially made those 2 rivals when Penn State joined the Big Ten, neither of these teams are really hostile towards one another, but they are hostile towards the trophy itself. Back in 2020, Franklin said it looks like something your great uncle might make in his workshop.
The Land Grant Trophy is just a sight to be seen. It is just beauty.
You know, for a block of wood, I think it's the prettiest block of wood I've ever seen in my life. It's something that we definitely want back in our locker room, and we're going to do whatever it takes to get it here.
There is nothing more polarizing than that thing right there. If you're
It's so ugly. They're too polite to say it. It's ugly.
If you're unfamiliar with this gem, here it is. It was designed by the Spartans AD at the time, George Perlis. Clearly, you can see why he's a football coach and not a sculptor. Anyways, well, the trophy didn't debut until the 90s, Penn State and Michigan State. They actually have played a lot longer than that, first going back to 1914. Taking a look at this weekend's Nittany notes, Katron Allen was the co-Big Ten Freshman of the Week. Allen and Nick Singleton are the first duo of freshman running backs in the Big Ten to eclipse 700 yards in a single season, making history there in Happy Valley. And finally, 7 Michigan State Spartans have been charged with by the Washtenaw County Prosecutor's Office for their role in assaulting Michigan players in the tunnel after that game last month. Well, today before kickoff, seniors will be honored one final time inside Beaver Stadium. Of course, always an emotional pregame ceremony.
Regardless of whether you graduated this year or 10 years ago, one former Nittany Lion says it's a day you embrace for a long time. Former Nittany Lion quarterback Shane McGregor remembers his final home game quite vividly.
We were Wisconsin 2012, and it was unseasonably warm, I remember.
In the days leading up to the season finale, he poked his head inside an empty Beaver Stadium and soaked it all in.
And I walked on up to the very top, and here's this cathedral that is vastly just, no one's there. And I don't think I've ever seen it that way. It was this empty place that a lot of crazy stuff happens and a lot of things that change lives, you know. So for me being in that introspective mood, that was something I'll never forget.
That Saturday, Penn State beat Wisconsin 24-21 in overtime. It was a celebratory win for a class that had endured so much. And while the circumstances are dramatically different, this has been one of the most unique eras of college athletics.
The landscape has changed in the college football world, but the guys that we bring in this place, the guys that I've met over my time here, that hasn't changed, and that's why I'm blessed to have came back, and I'm blessed to say I played here.
The Nittany Lions have 15 seniors on their roster, and while some will choose to come back, other guys like quarterback Sean Clifford know Saturday's game will be his last in Happy Valley.
One of the first things that I was taught when I came into this program was appreciation and the importance of it, and being able to really, just think about all your blessings and never have any regrets. Do I regret a throw? Yeah, for sure. A bunch of throws, hundreds of throws. But at the same time, when it comes to how I've approached the game, how I've approached every single day in the locker room, did I have some bad days? Yeah, for sure. But at the same time, I know I've given this program everything I got.
And through the highs and lows, the seniors have grown along the way.
We have people in this building who care for you, not just as a football player, but as a person, So, obviously it's a great opportunity for someone to play big time football and get good academics as well, and be surrounded by, individuals who truly care for them.
It's been a hell of a ride here at Penn State, and you never want to see it come to an end, but nothing lasts forever.
And Shane was our guest on Nittany Nation Overtime, and after the Michigan State game, tune back into your Nittany Nation stations for full coverage. Me, Mark Brennan, and Neil Riddell and our weekly guests break down Penn State and Michigan State on Nittany Nation Overtime. It follows the 11 p.m. newscast on WTAJ, or get it wherever you can when it drops on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
You good?
Yep, we're good.
Okay.
Can talk.
When we come back, Andrew Destin from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette will join me to break down the bowl picture.
But first, Joe Murgo has your game day forecast. Joe?
Hey guys, a late November game, we get a little bit leery on the weather. Not this time around. I'm actually excited to be at Beaver Stadium this Saturday. We're going to have a kickoff temperature near 50 degrees. It's going to be comfy in the sun, a little cool in the shade. Now keep in mind the sun sets during the game and it will cool off. Temperatures are going to be dropping into the low 40s by the end of the game with a few clouds, so it'll be cooling off fast, so I would definitely bring an extra layer into Beaver Stadium.
You're watching Nittany Nation Game Day.
Welcome back to Nittany Nation Game Day. Penn State faces Michigan State at 4 o'clock. It's an important weekend for the Nittany Lions with so many bowl scenarios still staring Penn State square in the face. To discuss those, we do have Andrew Destin of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. You can follow him on Twitter at AndrewDestin1. That's the number 1. Andrew, thanks for coming on. The general consensus, barring upsets and whatnot, is that Penn State is heading to the Citrus Bowl. Do you agree with that assumption?
Yeah, it's basically what I'm seeing right now. Every projection, every model I've ran, the only thing that could really help out Penn State would be if that Michigan-Ohio State game is a close one. And right now, it just seems like Citrus Bowl is the most likely scenario. It seems like Penn State against Ole Miss is one that I'm seeing a lot of. And really, you're just going to need a lot of things to shake up for it to go in the direction of Penn State making a New Year's Six Bowl. Something along the lines of an LSU upsetting Georgia might help that cause, or you need something to happen where Tennessee somehow loses to Vanderbilt in that rivalry game, Clemson dropping to UNC in the ACC championship game. But that's barring a lot of upsets, like you mentioned, Andrew. So by every indication right now, what I'm seeing is Penn State in the Citrus Bowl against an SEC at-large team and likely to be Ole Miss.
I can't seem to wrap my head around is why the analysts and analytics don't seem to see eye to eye. ESPN's playoff predictor still gives Michigan a 72% chance to make the CFP even if it loses to Ohio State, and gives the Buckeyes an 87% chance to make it even if it loses to Michigan. Why do you think there is so much discrepancy here between the computers putting 2 Big Ten schools in and the analysts not?
I think it's because you're having a lot of the analytics favor the Big Ten, because we've said time and time again that the Big Ten is the second best conference in the land, but the national perception is this is a down year for the Big Ten, and people want to favor schools like a USC out of the Pac-12 because that's the good storyline, right? Lincoln Riley goes there, good year for USC, maybe exceed expectations, and then TCU is the darling in the sense that, an undefeated season so far, everything seems to be going in their direction. That's a team that if they win, they're in. But if you look at strength of schedule, yeah, there's a lot going in TCU's way. But when it comes to the analytics, there's a lot of reasons to think that Ohio State and Michigan both have good chances of going in. What you can't account for is the human element. And there's the national bias. There's the geographical bias of different people being from different areas of the country. So to me, it still seems like that's very likely. I mean, there's a reason these two teams have been right there at the top in the college football playoff rankings seemingly all year. So, if you're a Michigan or Ohio State fan, you got to feel pretty good about your chances. But the last thing you want to do is be that team like Ohio State in 2016, where you don't win your conference championship, you don't win your division in your conference, and you're kind of beholden to the remaining teams around you and how they kind of figure out the rest of their season.
Sports Illustrated, I believe it was, this week picked the Orange Bowl for the Nittany Lions. Is it realistic that Penn State makes a New Year's Six Bowl if two Big Ten schools don't make the CFP?
Yeah, it's possible. I think what you would have to happen there is whoever wins that game, right, they go to the college football playoff, and then the loser goes to the Rose Bowl. And the path for Penn State is you need a couple of things to happen. It would really help for an Alabama to lose in the Iron Bowl. Obviously, easier said than done against an Auburn team, but they've shown some resiliency and some firepower with interim coach Cadillac Williams, so not totally ruling out things there. An Ole Miss loss in the Egg Bowl would certainly help things if they lose to Mississippi State. That would really benefit the cause. And Tennessee, if they can continue that slide. Vanderbilt, I mean, they beat Florida last week. Who's to say that they can't beat Tennessee? So everything's up in the air. Those are all less than likely outcomes, but they're all still in play. So an Orange Bowl would happen if you get some serious help from the SEC side and all those teams that are coming out of the SEC West and, of course, Tennessee.
Obviously, fans want a New Year's Six Bowl, but given how Penn State did play against Michigan and Ohio State, do you think the Nittany Lions are best served to play one of those top teams, or would a Citrus Bowl against, as someone you said, Ole Miss or someone similar be a better matchup?
Yeah, I mean, everybody's going to jump at the New Year's Six possibility, but when it comes to a better game, we haven't even talked about the Cotton Bowl, but that would be one where you point to and say, hey, you play against a team like a UCF or a Cincinnati. I think all of us would be on the same page saying that a Penn State Alabama Citrus Bowl or Penn State Ole Miss Citrus Bowl would be a heck of a lot more interesting. So I think in terms of intrigue and what's a better game, yeah, naturally you're going to go to the New Year's Six because that's the more prominent bowl game. But the Citrus Bowl is as good of any bowl game as we're going to see this year because it's probably going to be a 10-2 Big Ten team in Penn State if it's them versus a 10-2 team at the SEC. So that's a really prominent bowl that maybe doesn't get the love that it deserves. It's not a New Year's Six game, but it's definitely one fans should have circle on their calendars because that should be a great matchup with lots of NFL talent on both sides of the ball, assuming everybody plays.
He's the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette's Andrew Destin. Andrew, I really appreciate you joining me. Well, when we come back, it's time to wrap up our show, our final thoughts, and my one big prediction. We'll see if I can strike again this week. You're watching Nittany Nation Game Day.
Watch Nittany Nation Game Day on these great stations every week. WFXP in Erie, WHTM in Harrisburg, WPHL in Philadelphia, WYOU in Wilkes-Barre, DC News Now in Washington, and WTAJ in Altoona.
You're watching Nittany Nation Game Day.
Our Nittany Nation Rewind goes back to the land-grant bloodbath of 2015. Connor Cook and Sparty took to James Franklin and company 55-16 as Michigan State moved to 11-1 on the season. Cook threw 3 touchdowns in the victory, the 39-point spread, the largest point differential in the history of this series. Just a few minutes here left on the show. Let's finish it up with our final thoughts. Anderly, kick us off with your key to the game.
The key to this game is quite simple. It's slow down quarterback Peyton Thorne, and if you do that, you effectively slow down Sparty. Michigan State has not done much well this year other than throw the football, and I have no reason to believe that the Nittany Lions won't be able to take care of business. Penn State remains the top team in passes defended and is 4th nationally in completion percentage.
My one bold prediction, the Nittany Lions will get another 4-score win, a 4th straight for Penn State. This is a bad Michigan State defense, and I think Penn State has one of the more impressive offensive outings coming up this afternoon.
But before we say goodbye, let's take a look at the Nittany Lions in the NFL. Micah Parsons continues to have a monster season. 4 tackles and a pair of sacks as the Cowboys blew out the Vikings. Altoona native Kevin Givens had 2 tackles and a sack in the 49ers win over the Cardinals on Monday Night Football in Mexico City. And rookie Arnold Ebiketie had 6 tackles, including 2 for loss and a sack as the Falcons beat the Bears 27-24.
Well, that will do it here on Nittany Nation Game Day. We will have a season recap show next Saturday in a special time slot, so check your local listings for that. But for the regular season, this is a wrap, Anderly. It's been a good season.
It's been really fun.
So for Anderly Penwell, I'm Andrew Clay. As always, thanks for watching.